Okay, that was excellent, Liz. I'm gonna see if I'm just as skillful in sharing my screen, and the answer is no. So it'll take me a few seconds. So let's see, here we are. I wanna make sure that that you can see the right version. Do you see, they see my application. I'm trying to see if you can see, which version do you see?
It's in presenter mode.
Okay, so I'm gonna get that out of there, swap. How about now?
Fab.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, guys, as Olivia and Liz mentioned, there are a bunch of things here. And the key here is that I always like to break down things into an equation. It's just the way I think. Maybe it's that medical mind or the not so medical mind that makes it easy for me to understand. So the title of my talk is R equals to 4T plus 5P. I do have a conflict of interest. I do have pediatric anesthesia lectures on the McGraw-Hill Education website. This was a fun project I did with friends, and like Dr. Whitlock mentioned, I really didn't think it was going to work, but here we are 10 plus years in. I didn't know what the podcast was too when I did it. I'm not cool. And I want to first thank Chad, Dr. Brummett, Dr. Hoff, and Olivia. Without these guys, none of this would be happening. It's their vision. We're just supporting their vision. And I am really proud to be part of this team. So resilience, I'm going to make this smaller so I can see, equals to 4 types and 5 pillars. And in my brain, it helps me understand how things work so I can figure out where I belong in this thing. You'll find that I will talk about resilience, but I won't forget about failure because I think that's important as well. So I want to ask a question, and I'm sorry that I'm messing up the question and answer portion. Which statement that I'm going to put up 4 statements, represents the definition of resilience? Is it the capability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after deformation caused especially by compressive stress? Is it the ability to deal with challenges and overcome setbacks? Is it the ability to advance despite adversity? Or is it the ability to survive and address the likely negative challenges of life experience? If somebody wants to speak up, that's fine. That way we won't mess up the chat. If others want to put it in the chat, that works. Which statement represents the definition of resilience?
Well, I think honestly, all of them are appropriate definitions of resilience. I guess it depends on what specific type of situation you're going through.
Dr. Presley, A+. All of definitions of resilience. Of course, the first one is like chemistry, science, what I deal with. The rest of them deal with the way people interpret resilience. And I will talk about at the end which one is my favorite, but let's get to it. In general, this is important because medical students are believed to have a higher incidence of perceived stress, poor coping skills, and lower resilience than age and gender matched peers in the general population. This was actually a study that was published. Do you guys agree with that statement? Anybody, speak up. Do you agree? It's okay if you do. I won't put you on the spot. I'll tell you how I feel about it. Of course not. Everybody has that. Everybody has that when they're dealing with transitions. The key is how to address it. I can believe that you could find pilots having the same thing. You could find engineers having the same thing. Anybody who's experiencing a transition, and this is like a leap transition, will also have a period of stress. And maybe what is the general population? If you put anybody in a numerator above the general population, of course, what their specific group would be washed out so that, yes, maybe you could find some differences. So why is it important to me? Why did I bring this up to you? Because resilience is positively associated with well-being of medical students. It's associated with lower levels of psychological distress, and it's associated with better life satisfaction, happiness, and higher quality of life, and it's associated with fewer anxiety symptoms and increased subjective well-being. And these are things that actually make your life. Word of caution. Resilience can refer to many things, as Dr. Presley already mentioned. To understand and benefit from resilience, you have to recognize it in all its forms. And I want to submit to all of you that you are developing some of these forms, if not all of them already. So let's get to it. There are 4 types. There's resilience of community, there's resilience that's physical, there's psychological resilience, and there's social. And I put these figures in here just for you to see it. Community around a central theme, physical around exercise, psychological that's more inward, and of course social, which we all experience in our classes. So what is community resilience? Well, it's the sustained ability of communities to withstand, adapt, and recover from adversity. Does anybody want to take a stab at what types of examples of community resilience exist in your world? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I think when we have a particularly hard exam, we kind of all get together after and debrief about it. So we're all just, not feeling alone in how hard that exam was.
Exactly. Doctor, this is an amazing thing that we do naturally. We rally around when we have something that we experience together. Somebody's sneezing. Bless you. How about physical resilience? This is something that some of us really love because it gets us to escape and do things in one form. So it's ability of an organism to respond or adapt to stressors that acutely disrupt normal physiological homeostasis. Now you're saying, now why would I say that when I have a biker? Well, because this isn't a normal body. This is a body that has been built to adapt to biking. So with that in mind, what are examples of physical resilience? Anybody want to take a stab?
I think one is like the ability to recover from injuries.
Exactly. Because with every reaction, right, equal and opposite, right? So recovery, inflammation, reparation, that's all part of the recovery process. Next type of resilience. How about psychological resilience? It's the ability to cope mentally or emotionally with a crisis and the return to the pre-crisis status in a timely fashion. Nobody says that that has to be immediate, but in a timely fashion. This person uses learned behaviors by promoting personal assets and protecting self from the potential negative effects of stressors. What are examples of psychological resilience? And if you don't have that yet, tell me a situation where psychological resilience could be important. Feel free. Who wants to speak up? Well, this one is a tough one, guys. It's the one that comes up when, let's say, you tried, I'm an anesthesiologist, so I'm going to talk about that. You tried to intubate, and the first time you missed, right? So what do? Well, you don't skulk in the corner. Some people say, I missed. Some people say the airway's doing this. Other people smile and make a joke. These are all examples of psychological resilience to get past the fact that maybe you didn't get it the first time. These are learned behaviors, and all of them are useful. How about social resilience? Now, this one really intersects with community resilience, so I'm not going to ask you about the type of this, but it's the ability of social entities, and you guys are a social entity, to cope with, withstand, and recover, and in this case, disasters. Now, education is not a disaster, but this is what you find on the web. So I thought that I need to bring up what's there, but just cope with just experiences. And these are all experiences that you haven't had before. So which type of resilience is the most important? Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
I guess it depends on what your definition of resilience is, like what you are currently needing to overcome per se. But mine is psychological.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Mantella, you said it, you're speaking to my heart. I have no idea which one is the most important. I do know all of them are important and it's situational. So what do I know? In community resilience, this is a group thing and it's outward facing, okay? Examples are volunteering, healthcare, trying to make your patient do what's best for them, right? Healthcare organizations like to talk about community resilience. In physical resilience, it's individual. Example, personal best, sports, marathon, jogging, walking, running, jump rope, pickleball, you name it, okay? Psychological, it's individual, it's internal. Examples are humor, empathy, and of course, conversation. And last but not least, social. In this way, social can be a group, but this group, instead of outward facing, is inward facing. And examples of these are well-being events to counteract the isolation of COVID. So what do I know? Well, R equals 4T, now X, and we've discussed an incomplete zebra. What's the second half? Well, the second half are the 5 pillars of resilience. Like what makes up resilience? We now know that there are different types. This group is astute enough to understand that it's situational and all types are helpful, but one type might help you more than the other. But there are 5 pillars of resilience that help you get there no matter what the type is. And these are they. One is self-awareness, awareness to know what type works for you. And that only takes with practice. Resilience is like a muscle. If you don't use the muscle, it atrophies. So you have to discover which type works best for you. The second is purpose. Purpose is something that we all know well. It got us into medical school. It got us into those labs. It got us in MSARF. Purpose is what medical students know well. The third one is mindfulness. The fourth is relationships. And last but not least, it's self-care. So which pillar of resilience is most important? Which is most important? I have no idea. But which pillar of resilience is most developed in medical students? Who wants to take a stab? And this is only my opinion. Who wants to take a stab at? No wrong answers today. Well, I won't put you on the spot for that. The pillar of resilience that is most developed is purpose. So that means you're already started on your resilience pillars. You're already almost a quarter of the way down. The next is mindfulness, relationships, and of course, self-care and self-awareness. What do I know? Because that's really why you asked me. I've been doing this a while. You want to know what I'm thinking and why. And really, I think that's the way I did it when I was at a medical student level. I asked everybody what they knew and why. Well, self-awareness is the individual inward-facing pillar. Examples are, well, how do I respond to a crisis? Am I somebody that gets nervous in a crisis, but still purposeful? Or am I somebody who turns inward in a crisis? It doesn't matter. We just need to know which one is it. And then really let those around you, just like Dr. Whitlock mentioned, know that. Like, for example, in a crisis, if I have a code in the OR, it is well known, and some of you might know some of the people I mentored, that in the middle, when the patient's more stable, I might say, well, that was rude, or something like that, to just calm everybody down. Everybody knows that's coming. As long as the patient gets stable, I may say something to break the ice. That's my way of actually breaking the ice within myself. And fortunately, it works for others as well. The pillar of purpose is also individual and can be physical. It's like, how can I improve survival, and outcomes in my patients. That's why most of us went to med school. That's why we're here. Mindfulness can be individual as well. It's internal. Examples are, how do I perceive my behaviors and how do they affect others? So let's say in that situation, I gave you an example of, yes, I'm doing a code, and in the middle, when the patient's stable, I crack a joke or something. I have to take a temperature of the room and make sure the room is okay with that. That is me exercising mindfulness and being aware that other people may not see it that way. Relationships in a group is, again, in-facing. How are my behaviors being perceived by others? It is closely related to mindfulness. And last but not least, self-care. As a group, it's in-facing. How have I prepared myself? Have I given myself enough sleep, enough reading? For me, enough sports and reading. Video games work for others, and of course, retail therapy cannot be ignored. So resilience equals to 4 T's and 5 P's. And with that, you get the complete zebra. So in closing, I just want to say a few things. My favorite definition of resilience is advancing despite adversity. I think it's more positive. It makes you aware that different things are for different people. It keeps you goal-oriented towards your stated vision, whatever that is, in work, in home, in play, in friendships. It keeps you proactive. So you're not waiting for adversity in order to develop resilience. You're using common everyday challenges to develop the way you respond to things that don't go well the first time. And it acknowledges both small and large challenges. For me, failure equals to trial 1. And with that, I'm leaving it open for questions.